Ms. Morrison's on her way. So, is this something we're supposed to be using? Yeah. Oh. Okay, because we just thought we'd ask, because it works different in every room and every place we go, right?
It does.
So I'm Congresswoman McCollum. I represent St. Paul, Minnesota, and have the honor and privilege of being Dean of the Minnesota delegation. And we're here just to tell people our concerns and the things that we're expecting to be addressed in the State of the Union. First and foremost, the economy is not good. Prices are still high. Heating's high. For a lot of us folks in Minnesota, it's been very cold. Health insurance costs have skyrocketed because of the big, beautiful, not so beautiful bill and the way that it did not renew credits for families to be able to buy the insurance that their families deserved. Small businesses not being able to have the insurance that they want for their employees. All these costs have accumulated. But I'm just going to take a second before I turn this over to my colleagues and just talk about the other accumulated cost in Minnesota. The surge not only had a cost that the federal government was sustaining. We don't know how much that was yet. We know that the president's going to say it was successful. Well, I don't think it was. It's not successful if we have 2 citizens, residents in Minnesota, who are dead. Many who have been hospitalized and have permanent injuries from the way that they were assaulted and treated by ICE and Custom Border Patrol. Businesses that had to close. Employees that were afraid to go to work who were U.S. citizens because they were getting randomly picked up, who help, whether it's at a daycare setting, to a nursing home, to assisted living, helping some of the most vulnerable people in our communities. It was a disaster for our economy and for so many families in Minnesota. Let me just close with this before I turn it over. The State of the Union is in great peril. The economy's not good. People don't have confidence in the federal government to do the right thing anymore. And we have a president who keeps insisting that he won Minnesota 3 times and now wants to see our voter rolls and the rolls all over across this country. I expect President Trump to keep being the denier-in-chief that he has been since he lost the 3 elections in Minnesota. And with that, I will turn it over to, let's see, should we go by district number? How about my twin sister from the 5th district?
Thank you, Madam Dean. Thank you all for being here today. I am grateful to my colleagues, Congresswomen McCollum and Congresswoman Craig, for their leadership. Tonight, Donald Trump will deliver the State of the Union. We know his speech will be full of lies about how our nation is thriving under his leadership. We know that it is BS. Our constituents are facing economic ruin because of his policies. American families are hiding because Trump's masked goons are roaming the streets looking for people of color. American businesses are suffering from unlawful tariffs and sky-high prices. Donald Trump funnels billions into his family's businesses and is shaking down his own government for $10 billion. Americans can't afford health care. They can't afford rent. They are weighted down by the mountains of student loan debt. The pedophile protection party in chief has instructed his Justice Department to cover up the Epstein file. So far, only half of the Epstein files have been released. No additional prosecutions have been announced, and our FBI director is partying it up in Italy on taxpayer dime. The truth about the State of the Union is this: our country is on life support, and the American people are the ones paying the price. Minnesotans are here today to continue to shine a light on what is actually happening and continues to happen in our state. Over the past few months, our state has shown the country and the world what it truly means to be Minnesota strong. Our communities have been under siege by a hostile, unhinged, and unaccountable federal government. Through the so-called Operation Metro Surge, federal immigration agents flooded our neighborhoods, not to protect us, but to terrorize us. This federal occupation resulted in the deaths of two of my constituents, Renee Good and Alex Preddy. Renee was a mother, a daughter, and neighbor. Alex was a VA nurse who dedicated his life to caring for others. They both should be alive. Their deaths should be investigated, not covered up. And we know what accountability for these officers would look like if it wasn't the Trump DOJ obstructing justice. Because none of this terror was accidental or unintentional. It was part of a coordinated effort to target Black, brown, immigrant, and Muslim communities through fear, actual profiling, and intimidation. Tonight, I'm bringing 4 Minnesotans, individuals whose stories reflect the human cost of this reckless operation. Their goal was to make people feel that they do not belong, regardless of their citizenship, regardless of their rights, regardless of the law. But to their surprise, our communities did not flinch. In the face of violence, Minnesotans organized. We protected one another. We checked in on our neighbors. We showed up at schools, at mosques, at churches, at community centers. We showed up with love instead of fear. This is who Minnesotans are. And instead of cowering, Minnesotans has shown that true resilience and resistance looks like. And we will continue to stand together, Black, brown, immigrant, Muslim, working class, united in the fight against authoritarianism. We are Minnesota strong, and we will never back down. Thank you, and I now turn it over to Representative Angie Craig.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Representative McCollum and Representative Omar. There's no sugarcoating it to anyone. Minnesota has been through a lot this year. All of us standing here today have witnessed the Trump administration terrorize our communities, whether that's through Operation Metro Surge, tariffs, political violence, or otherwise. Tonight, I expect to hear a whole lot of lies from this president. We've heard them over the past 2 months as he and his administration have tried to sell the narrative that Operation Metro Surge was intended to keep our communities safe, intended to keep and get violent criminals off our streets. We know that isn't the case. Just ask my guest, Angel Silva, whose mother, Concepcion, was detained at an immigration hearing. She was in Minnesota with a work permit and was on her way to attaining legal permanent residency. She was attempting to do things the right way, but the Trump administration doesn't care about that. After being held at the Whipple Center in Minneapolis and later El Paso, Concepcion was forced to make the unthinkable decision to self-deport back to Mexico, leaving behind her family in Minnesota, including a 10-year-old child. Just last week, Representative Omar and I went back to the Whipple Federal Building to conduct congressional oversight of the ICE detention center where Concepcion was held. We provided over a week's notice and were granted a tour of the facility at the 11th hour. When we got there, we found the facility completely empty, with the last detainee being transported out 30 minutes before our arrival. Again, this is no accident. This administration doesn't want us to see what's really going on behind closed doors. They will feign transparency and try to shift blame at every opportunity. But Minnesotans know the truth. The ICE officials at the federal building tried to tell us that they have a zero-tolerance policy for racial profiling. But our eyes do not deceive us, and nor do our cameras. Thank you to Minnesotans for standing up, for stepping up, and making sure that the world could see what actually happened in Minnesota. We've seen ICE detaining folks based on the color of their skin, showing up at immigration hearings and schools, and ripping children from their parents. Somehow, even amidst the chaos and terror President Trump and Kristi Noem have inflicted on our state, Minnesotans have remained peaceful. They've stood up for their neighbors. They've used their voices, not violence, to respond. They've exercised the right to constitutionally observe and protest. They have reported on what's happening here, and they have demanded justice for the deaths of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. We must continue that fight on behalf of Angel and his mother, Concepcion, and countless other Minnesotans whose lives have forever been changed by Operation Metro Surge. We will never forget the trauma that President Trump and his administration inflicted on our communities, but we will soon begin the difficult process of healing, one that Minnesotans are all too familiar with. That starts with uplifting the stories of folks like Angel and his family, and all the guests here with us today. We will not let this administration continue to set the narrative. We can't. So thank you to everyone here today. It's an honor to be side by side with my colleagues from Minnesota. Thank you.
I did not mention my guest because we're going to close with that. So some of us had the honor and the privilege of serving with Melissa Hortman. Some of us knew her. I met her the first time she was running for the Minnesota House and lost a race. And I knew she was a very special person then. I met Colin at the time, who was much younger and a lot shorter, her son and her children. And they will be, Colin and his wife will be the guest of Congresswoman Morrison and myself. They're here to exemplify what Melissa exemplified, what we exemplify, what our state does. A state that shows consideration and kindness to one another. A state that wants to tone down the rhetoric so that we can have the conversations how to move our economy, hope, and opportunity for all the residents of Minnesota together. We've lost a lot in Minnesota this year. Before the surge, we watched Melissa and her husband violently murdered, and we are so grateful that John and Yvette have recovered from their injuries. It was a weekend like no other, and then to have the surge come on top of it was very, very traumatic for our state. But as my colleagues have pointed out, we rise up. We look to the North Star. We look to one another to make sure that we will have a democracy that represents hope, values, rights, and protects our Constitution. And so I think our reflection not only is the state of the economy not good, the state of this nation under President Trump's leadership is not going the right direction. And the American people agree it, and Minnesota saw it firsthand. So if anybody had any quick questions, we'll take a few, just direct them.
There's a lot of folks who aren't attending for your party tonight. I guess what's the considerations that you guys made in terms of going?
I'll speak for myself, and I've been to more of these than the two of them have. You know, he's promised a very long speech, and that in and of itself can be rather difficult because it's a long day today. I respect every single one of my colleagues who make the decision not to go. I've always attended State of the Unions. I felt it was important for Minnesota to be there united to show that there's an old Phil Collins song. It's called In the Air Tonight. I know, I've seen what you've done. And we're going to be there to witness that firsthand. But I know you've talked to some of our colleagues that aren't coming. They have really good reasons, many of them.
Yeah. I mean, I would say this is our house, and we're not leaving it because we have someone coming that we do not agree with. And so I've always attended the State of the Union, and I will continue to do that.
And I'll just end with this. I would rather stick forks in my eyes than be here tonight to listen to Donald Trump talk about the State of the Union. But this is the people's house, and I will not abandon the people's house. And that is why I feel it's really important to bring Angel Silva here to represent and have Donald Trump have to look in the face tonight the people that he has hurt across our country.
I got a chance to meet you, but these two haven't. So if you'd introduce yourself. I don't know who knows who.
Yep.
I'll marry somebody before it's done. So.
But Michael Jones from Once Upon a Hill. Thank you all for doing this. Before Operation Metro Surge and dating back to last year, President Trump's immigration numbers were always higher than his economic numbers, but now they're both deeply underwater with the American people, given what they've seen happening in your state. Do you view kind of the unpopularity of President Trump's, mass deportation operations as an opportunity for you all to to really press the case for the reforms that you all are demanding, given the fact that he's delivering this speech when U.S. Secret Service are going to be protecting this place, not getting paid, TSA agents all over the nation? Is there an opportunity, given the fact that Americans are so just dissatisfied with what they're seeing in your state and across the country, for you all to continue to press this case for why these reforms that you all have been demanding are so necessary?
Betty, and then I'd like to answer.
So, President Trump surged into Minnesota, hoping to make Minnesota be the poster child for the numbers of thousands of people he wanted detained every day. But when he came to Minnesota, he found out a lot of the people, black and brown, as my colleagues have pointed out, either had protected status, were going through the right way and to become a citizen and to work in the state, or they were citizens or first generation. And so it all went wrong for him. And the brutality of it was all recorded, as my colleagues have pointed out. So we just said they have enough money to operate. I'm on the Appropriations Committee, Homeland Security for the ICE and Border Patrol, for the next 5 to 7 years. They don't need any money. This is our opportunity to say, you know what? They need to behave like the professionals we expect from law enforcement, from our local law enforcement. This was our opportunity to do that. And the president didn't want to do that. And he made it really clear to me this weekend when he said that they were going to cut off the pre-check for at the airport. That was sheer bullying. You know what? He thought that would make all of us run back here and say, we don't care for any reforms. You don't have to identify yourself. You can assault people. Nobody's going to be held accountable. It didn't work because the American people are on to him that he is a bully. And so him and Kristi Noem had to walk that back right away. They're going to try time and time and time again. But my vote is going to be to protect the citizens, the residents, the visitors here, not only in my state, but around the country, from people who are acting illegally and unconstitutionally by detaining people and physically harming them. And in the case of Minnesota and other places around the country, seeing them not be able to go back and have dinner with their family because they were killed.
I just, as someone who represents a congressional district that's a third Democrats, a third Republicans, and a third of my voters don't like Democrats or Republicans, I think it's really instructive that in my conversations back home, independent voters 100% believe that Trump's tactics, Kristi Noem's tactics, and ICE in Minnesota went way too far. And so I think when you look at a 26% approval rating nationally for President Trump, he is coming into the people's house in the weakest state he has ever been in all of the excruciating years that we have had to endure his presidency. And why that is because he hasn't made affordability better in this country. Farm bankruptcies are up 46% across this nation. Voters, independent voters, have seen the brutality of Trump and Kristi Noem's ICE. And so 100%, I think, he's going to have to face the people of this country. This is the people's house. He's going to have to face us tonight.
You want to say anything more, please?
Oh,
I would say, you know, we just for the search, I know Representative McCollum alluded to this earlier in her opening remarks. There's $300 million in damages to our businesses. I represent Minneapolis along with 13 other cities. One of the business corridors in Minneapolis on Lake Street, just 2,000 businesses, they are losing $30 million per month. That impact does not have a Democrat attached to it. It doesn't have a Republican attached to it. It doesn't have independent attached to it. That is an economic impact that is going to be felt regardless of who you vote for or whether you vote or not. We know that the tariffs, as we've talked about many a times, have had devastating impact. Minnesota has a $22 billion trade with Canada. Many of our businesses have been impacted because of his reckless tariffs. We know that soybean farmers are railing as he, gives $40 billion to Argentina, and then they're doing trade with China instead of doing it with us. And so, if Minnesota, which is a smaller state, is experiencing this kind of economic devastation, you bet every other state is as well. And the American people understand their pocketbook. The American people understand what it means to have a president that actually cares about their pocketbooks, and the American people understand what it means to have a stable leadership. The kind of chaotic leadership that they are seeing is not the one that they signed up for, and it's not the one that makes us feel good, and it's not one that makes us look good in the eyes of the world. And so I look forward to continuing to amplify this message. Thank you all for being here today.
Clarify, the $300 million is just from the Operation Metro Surge.
Yes, just in Minneapolis.
Right.
Yes, we haven't gotten to St. Paul numbers. We haven't gotten, to the numbers across Minnesota.
And economic damage to businesses.
Yeah, just in Minneapolis. Yeah.
And that doesn't include what Minneapolis is facing with police overtime, what the cost will be that Minnesota's absorbing for our National Guard to protect citizens outside of the Whipple building. It doesn't include what our school districts are facing with this. This is a real economic underpinning to what our colleagues are facing back home in the Minnesota State Legislature. And everybody kind of mentioned Canada. The only thing we want to have a friendly disagreement with Canada about hockey. Well, we argue about fish in the round too, but
did
fish
just
and
beat
hockey.
them, so.
But we won.
We
That's
just
why
we
we
just
need
beat
to be,
them.
We need to be Minnesota nice. We won. Thank you.
Yes, of course.
This is somebody's mic up here.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, no, I totally. I'm here, but I'm just sort of never Sydney's always kind of part of this stuff. I know, but she was I think she was kind of heavily.
Yeah.
I know. I was on the flight. I was back home on Saturday. I took an early morning flight on Sunday.